Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak right here on Citizen TV. We continue with the news review where we take a look at the issues behind the headlines. And even as we do this, shortly we'll be heading to the South End Mall at the roundabout of Langata Road and Bagadi Way, where that mall is currently under demolition. You can see parts of it already down. Wahiga Mora will be sitting down with experts in construction and urban planning, and that's an urban planner and an architect, to actually try to understand better what it entails to bring down such a building and what exactly is happening. 4,000 more buildings set to be demolished in Nairobi alone, and we continue urging tenants, if at all you feel or you're aware that your building is one of those earmarked for demolition, well, do yourself a favor and try to move your stuff as soon as possible, because yes, the bulldozers are coming. Back in studio, we continue this discussion with Samatandi, MP Alego Songa, Gabriel Muthuma, political commentator, and Kimani Wamatangi, Senator, Kiambu County. Now I want to take a look at other issues, other big headlines. We've been looking at the fact that Evans Kidero has been arrested on corruption-related allegations. That happened yesterday, and we are waiting to see what actions going forward will be taken today. The other big story today has to do with the Ruaraka Land Scandal report. A committee of the Senate has handed in its report. Kimani Wamatangi, the senator for Kiambu, is a member of that committee. Kindly expound to us what exactly we're looking at here.
Yes, Fred. Yesterday the report by the committee was tabled in the Senate. I expect that it's going to be up for debate this afternoon in the Senate. And we've conducted that hearing for quite a while. We've listened to so many witnesses. Actually, I think we've had 3 cabinet secretaries and peers coming to testify before the committee. And in a nutshell, if I can just summarize it, to my mind, I think where this should be spotlighted, in my own view, after listening to all the people I've listened to, boils down to this. Why, at what point did land already given to the public under the hand and seal of a government officer with authority 30 years ago, who was then the Commissioner of Land, having declared that this is public land bequeathed unto the members of public to build a public facility? How come after investment by government and establishment of those schools, a few people sat down to ostensibly revoke that allocation and declare that that is private land? I mean, you know, I think that's where we first have to start the journey, and ask, if Fred today you come and find a school established here, and then you're told this school was established 30 years ago, there was then a Commissioner of Lands who was sitting under a Minister of Lands then, and according to the laws of this country, then it was decided that if you are going to subdivide this land, we have given this portion to the members of the public here to build schools. Then they go ahead and do that. And then a few people, in the name of the National Land Commission, go and sit in a boardroom and decide that that decision taken 30 years ago, with approvals which are there, with the minutes of a city council meeting that approved that, and there was the right authority, with documents that are available, including a subdivision plan from the Director of Survey, including with then an allotment letter that is given by the by the then Commissioner of Land. How can a few individuals sit and say that this is no longer public land, and so it is due for compensation to an individual? And that's where the first ping ball was hit.
And that's probably the basis of the report.
Absolutely.
But the main headlines have picked out the fact that CS Matiang has been indicted in this report, both in the Daily Nation and the Standard.
Yes.
And that is and that's where I want us to head. The fact that this CS has been mentioned adversely. And a point of clarification from you.
Yes.
Is it that the report recommends that he is investigated for any wrongdoing, or does the report recommend that he be held responsible?
Well, I would say this in what I believe is a matter of fact, that one, singling out Matiang from the report that we have written is wrong. Because let me explain.
Is it contained in the report?
Let me explain. Because there is a whole lineage of people we have said should be investigated, all the way, you know, from the chairman of the National Land Commission downwards. Remember, if you follow that report, actually, the first monies that were paid out to that whole portion of land were paid from the office of the president then by the then Dr. Liki and Zakayo Cheriot. They're the first people to pay concurrently or in conjunction with the late Ngenyi. That was, he was then the head of Kenya of Post and Telecommunication. They paid the first 688 million for this particular land. That was in 1998, and so we have taken this all the way. And then, of course, the report that was written by the request for payments that was written by the National Land Commission, which we said is an anomaly because it is not the work of the National Land Commission to institute or initiate the process of compensation. It should be coming from the parent ministry. But then when the report went to the Minister of Education, then of course it was okayed by the Minister of Education to also proceed with the payment. And that is where the CS, having been then the sitting minister.
So the headlines are not necessarily inaccurate. It's only that they may be deemed
not inaccurate, but selective. I believe selective, because if we would highlight the whole report, I mean there are quite a number of, but I believe, in my view, that where this should start to take us to the end of all the people involved, but should be at that time of the decision that this land is no longer
but in as far as CS Matiang is concerned, what is the recommendation? That he be investigated or that he be held responsible for approving any payment?
No. What the committee has said is that the investigations and the responsibility to be explained lies in the ministry then to explain why did they ignore a report of their own task force, which said that this land should not be compensated.
Okay. Now, the other issue, and this is back to, and forgive me, gentlemen, because he is part of that committee. So most of the questions are to him, because members of the National Assembly, and I'm glad that Honorable Samatandi is here, have actually dismissed the probe we've conducted on occasion. Even some members of the National Assembly that have hosted on this panel have said that this report by the Senate will be inconsequential because it is not part of your, it is not within your jurisdiction. They say that the Senate should really focus on oversighting what is happening at county level, that any other matters, including the probe into Ruaraka scandal, will just be, and I'll use the words of one of honorable members of the National Assembly, it is the work of an idle committee.
Let me first of all say that.
What are you asking him? What are you asking him?
Because it's just reinforcing. It's just reinforcing that. Then
first of all, I've read the report in the media, and I am appalled at how a whole committee of the Senate can be used to undertake a wind-chanting mission over some government officers, specifically to be able to be seen to be working, doing something better than the National Assembly. If you look at this report and the report which they have used, for instance, to indict somebody like CS Matiang, is to say that an internal team that was set up by who, I don't know when it was set up, that is the only link that they are trying to use to prosecute their report and to say that CS Matiang was involved in this kind of fraud. I think on this one the Senate has decided to undertake something which is not within their province, so that to be seen to be working for Kenya. And I agree with everybody who is saying that the Senate is idle. That is very correct. Where are they going to use their report? Because the National Assembly already conducted these investigations and presented their report to Parliament, after which now Senate again came up. It is like they were induced by some forces to go and malign a specific individual. And I want to tell my senator here, my colleague, that their report will not be trusted by anybody, because it is an afterthought. And two, even when you want to talk about this land, he has rightly said that the subdivision process began long time ago, and government began to pay all these monies. And even if you check, you find that Kenya also paid some parts of the land when they were acquiring, when they were doing their roads. They acquired part of the land. And this is something that has been ongoing. We have National Land Commission, the agency that is mandated to administer land in this country. If there's any issue to do with the land, that is the agency that should be responsible. And we cannot begin to backpass and try to malign some people, bring some names.
At what point do you say that the Senate does not have jurisdiction to probe such matters?
Senate's mandate is, begins and ends with matters to do with county governments. That's what the Constitution
and
does.
This
even
is
in
nowhere near
even
that.
in constitution making, they simply participate like any other Kenyan in the process of constitution making. So for them to sit down and waste public resources trying to undertake a process and an investigation which has already been done by the National Assembly is, to me, and we have made our point on this issue. In the National Assembly, we have asked our Speaker to engage the Speaker of the Senate so that we have order in our legislation.
Because of time, let's allow Gabriel Muduma to give some input into this before we go back to the Senate.
Very quickly, Fred, and I know this Ruaraka thing, I think it's a very huge thing, and from where I'm seated, I think we'll just have to wait until they start debating in the Senate. But the one thing that comes out, I wouldn't say they are actually in murky grounds for this one reason. It's a matter affecting Nairobi County. All right? And if Senate looks into matters county, they are actually within the parenthesis of their rights to actually deal with this issue. You know, that's what I can say. Secondly, and this is where I'll finalize, I think where it breaks the camel's back, and I don't know what they are going to do. I don't know, I don't know what we are going to do with that report. Is the report that Senator was talking about, the quality assurance and standard assessment. That committee was put in, I think, by the Ministry of Education. And their main purpose was to actually find out the issues about that land in particular. They brought back a finding. And that finding recommended not to move forward with paying for that land. So I think that is where we break the camel's back.
Senator, you've done a splendid job. The committee chaired by the senator from Homa Bay County, Moses Kajwang, has done a splendid job. But this push and pull between your house and the National Assembly could actually make your report inconsequential. The fact that the National Assembly says we've already expanded on that issue, the work of the Senate is simply the work of an idle committee.
Well, you know, I think, you know, for me, you know, and, with due respect, it's only worth a laugh. I mean, you know what Mheshimiwa there has said, because you know it either has no basis in right reasoning or in law. I mean, not even in, and I'm sorry to say, not even in common sense. And I'll tell you why. And I said I'm sorry to say so, but it's the truth. Because, you see, the Constitution we promulgated in 2010 is worded and prosed in such common language, intentionally so that everybody can be able to read it and understand it.
Then how come members of the National Assembly believe it is not within your province?
Let me finish. You know, just by a plain reading of the Constitution, very plain, any person, Wanjiko, can understand what the Constitution says. One, from Article 90 of the Constitution, you know, it simply says that there is established a parliament. And then the next article says that parliament consists of two houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. That's the basis. So that every time when you speak or talk about parliament, you're speaking about both houses. Let me tell you something that Mheshimiwa here knows simply. That if you initiate a law in the National Assembly, it has to go to the Senate and then to the President for assent. If you started from the Senate, it has to go downwards to the National Assembly to go for assent. That is how a bicameral system works. Now, if a law has been initiated on, for example, say anything, even on cattle dips from the National Assembly, it does not change to become a different law so that it comes to the Senate. It's the same law.
Despite the fact that the other house could have undertaken as parallel process.
And the reason why, and I want to explain to Mheshimiwa in plain language, the reason why in our new constitution this dispensation saw it right is because the National Assembly, by its own constitution, is a majoritarian house. They make decisions on the many. The Senate is an egalitarian house. It is an equalizer of interest nationally. And that is why you have the same law leaving the National Assembly, going to the Senate, so that the majority movement and impetus it got can be tempered at the Senate level by an equalizing thought process, whereby you'll be asking, is this in national interest? Now, lastly, I would want to say this, that if you start a law in the National Assembly, it has got to go to the Senate, just for simple lawmaking. The committees of Parliament, absolutely under Article 125, are not restricted at any one time. Neither is the process of Parliament restricted. That if you have this issue going on, for example, in the National Assembly, that you cannot have it going on in the Senate. Actually, in the National Assembly itself, if you just use that as an example, one committee can invite me to come and shed light on an issue, and this another committee in the same assembly can invite me to go and shed light on the same issue. That does not amount to duplication. I'm saying save now for the two houses. I believe the best way forward, if you asked me, is that for Kenyans to get the quality of legislation that they expect and the benefit of a bicameral system is I think we ward off the necessaries and get to but lastly
let me just put a rejoinder.
We do not have time.
This is important.
I just wanted to
Fred, please. This is just important. The senator knows very well that the Senate derives their mandate from Article 96, which spells the role and functions of the Senate. If you read that article and you mix it with Article 109 to 113, you will clearly see the role of the Senate. It has nothing to do with national government. It is purely legislation and oversight in county government. You have failed to do that. You have moved a province which is not yours. You are not even helping the counties to be effective and to run effectively. And you want to convince us that you can prosecute national matters.
Thank you so much.
Senate is idle. They need to go and perform their mandate.
Honorable Samatandi, MP Lego Songa, Gabriel Muthuma, political commentator, and Kimani Wamatangi, Senator, Kiambu County. Thank you so much for that. I know this issue of the Senate versus the National Assembly is a thorny issue, and I will promise I will
the issue of the National Assembly. I wanted to end it with that proposition shortly, that the Committee of Senate was formed to which hand anybody. I think that is the most lopsided and I would say juvenile way of looking at lawmaking or looking at issues. The reason why that matter was brought to the House is because it's of national interest and county interest. And I've said that number of people who have been, not indicted but should be looked at are several. So I think it is wrong for my friend here to come and look like a kamikaze bomber.
Gentlemen, it's been a nice debate, and of course we'll come back with this debate about the role of the Senate vis-a-vis the role of the National Assembly. It appears it is a thorny issue, and it could affect even the work of committees. We will have to wait and see what happens to this report by the Committee of the Senate with regard to the Ruaraka Land scandal. It has recommended that CS Matiang, among others, be investigated for their role in the fraudulent payment of 1.5 billion shillings for public land. Let's take a break. When we come back, Wahiga Maura will be sitting down with an urban planner and an architect at the site of what was the South End Mall, which is still under demolition for being on riparian land. Use the hashtag Daybreak as you send your comments on Twitter @CitizenTV Kenya is our Twitter handle.